got the verdict. The verdict is in. I had to jump. Y'all gotta excuse my look. I had to jump out of the bed. A verdict is in, y'all. You hear me, Diddy? We have a verdict. We have a verdict. We wait now. Everything in the court. I'm giving y'all a play by play as it's happening. Sorry, as I'm learning it. So y'all are here with me. But we have a verdict. P Diddy is in the court. The judges came in and said that the jury has a verdict. We're waiting for the foreperson, which is the head or the runner. What I was calling the runner is the foreperson. We're waiting for them to read off the verdict. It's in. So this is it. This is what we all been waiting on to see what they're going to charge with, whether it's going to be guilty or not guilty. But it's fast. Court started at 9 o'clock. By 9:55, they had a verdict. Now, some could say because it happened so fast, he's guilty. Um, but it could simply just they needed a chance to kind of calm down, get a chance to recruit, and they did overnight when they went home. So, y'all, a verdict is in. A verdict is in.
And we have received your note, says the judge. Juror number 5, have you reached a verdict? He is the foreman. Juror number 5 says we have. The judge says, is it unanimous? Juror number 5 says it is.
Oh my God, it's unanimous all over. They unanimously agree completely. There's no confusion. They all agree.
I may cut you off here. Take us inside. What's
Here we go. They all agree. They have reached a unanimous decision on all counts. Here we go. There is either he's innocent or they're guilty because they said he's unanimously. They have a verdict. There's no more hung jury. It's not a hung jury any longer, y'all. Oh Lord. I'm watching Law and is who I'm getting it from right now. I was with Tisha Tell this morning when I heard the news. She was giving us an update and it was like a verdict is in, a verdict is in. Oh y'all took off right. I got so I had to jump up to go find the rest of it. So there I'm giving you a live up to date what's actually happening as it's happening. What is being transferred over from inside the courtroom. So as soon as they type it, y'all go ahead.
In the courtroom right now that Sean Combs was praying with his family, and here is the verdict. The judge says the deputy will inquire as to the verdict. The deputy says, in the matter of the U.S. versus Sean Combs, count 1, juror number 5, not guilty.
Oh, that means he ain't gonna be guilty.
Juror number 5, not guilty. Deputy, transportation for prostitution, juror number 5, guilty.
Oh,
so we have 2 not guilties.
2 not guilties, 1 guilty.
Conspiracy, sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, that is not guilty, and transportation for prostitution, guilty. What is your reaction, William?
Transportation, okay. It's a split guilty, not guilty, but they all agree.
I'm very surprised. I thought that the prosecution really did put forward a fantastic.
So they said the transportation, guilty. 5, not guilty. 4, not guilty. 3, guilty.
Footprints that we talked about earlier, that perhaps she was a willing participant in all this. Perhaps she did know what was going on and that she was okay with it. That's my take on it.
The final 2 counts for sex trafficking of the victim who went by the suit Jane.
Need one more.
Number 5 says not guilty, and transportation for prostitution of Jane. Juror number 5 finds guilty. Jury finds it guilty, according to the foreman. Juror number 5. Candace, what is your reaction?
So listen, we're not surprised. We knew that lower act, we knew that the transportation crossing straight line, in order to engage in prostitution, we knew that was practically a given, that the defense was willing actually to give up, as we talked about before, that's up to 10 years, really across the spectrum. What we know it's not is RICO. We know it's not 20 years, right? And I think that that's something that defense definitely would say is a win. We are not surprised. I think that none of us are.
Yeah.
William, what does this mean for Sean Combs? Now, these are the 2, the 2 weakest charges in terms of penalties. I guess.
So right now he's charged with 2.
Not guilty on racketeering, not guilty on sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty of sex trafficking of Jane. What does this verdict mean, getting those two guilty verdicts on the transportation for prostitution charge?
Well, obviously, there's still serious charges. I mean, it's the full weight of the federal government has come down against Mr.
But they only got him on 2. That's still a lot. It's just
the more serious charges, if you will. But these were serious nonetheless, and there is a possibility that he's going to be sentenced to federal prison as a result. Both these counts carry with them up to 10 years in federal prison.
So that's 20 years. He's facing 20 years.
You can get credit for that. Do you think that there's a reasonable likelihood that they'll still be sentenced to some period of state prison and obviously, federal prison? But again, it's still very, very serious.
Does this mean that Sean Combs potentially could walk out of the courthouse today and then sentencing be pushed to a later date, Candace?
He's not walking out
Yeah,
today.
I was gonna say, what kind of justice is this? If you get found guilty on any count, you going to jail, right?
To the courthouse, and what they want to make sure doesn't happen is that he doesn't, he's not out in order to what they thought he might do, which was tamper with witnesses. If they choose to charge this any further, he's not going anywhere. He's going to be held, and then he's going to be sentenced, and then he's going to be
basically he's
somewhere.
facing 20 years. I can't believe they didn't charge him for anything else.
With Bob Lynette, you never know, but.
I figured Rico he wasn't gonna get, but
and then William
racketeering he wasn't gonna get. But God,
we know what the verdict is now. What happens next?
So what happens next is that there is a sentencing hearing that will take place probably 30 to 60 days from now. In the meantime, both sides will marshal their arguments. They'll put forth sentencing memorandum.
Hey Dion, how you doing? I'm doing good. I was caught up in this. I see you. Hey Jalen, Jalen, come on now. He guilty. He ain't guilty of all of it, but he guilty. So he.
Each of those 3 branches, if you will come up with.
Now that was something I didn't predict. I didn't think it was going to be half and half. I thought they was going to either say he was guilty or he was going to say innocent, since they had all agreed. But they split it.
What the courtroom was like in this moment with Sean Combs being found guilty of a serious charge of racketeering conspiracy. But Candace, as you look at the not guilty verdict, what could the prosecution look back on and think maybe we should have done to build a stronger case to maybe get a conviction on this?
Listen,
we both shocked. I'm shocked. I'm shocked on this end. I really am. I thought he was going to go down for the 4, and then on the 1 he got off on.
The prosecution, I think, if they were going to look back, I don't know, would they do something with Christina Coram? Maybe.
They should have. She should have been right there.
With this plethora of security guards that we know were within Sean's orbit that knew everything, because we know Sean wasn't driving himself to places, Sean wasn't getting candles, and Sean wasn't.
So I guess he in for both sides, because in the end he ain't facing life. So he's still doing. He can still do up to 20 years in prison, and they're gonna come back in 60 days to get to call down his sentence.
All throughout this trial, but we didn't bring. Could they have made it?
I want to bring our Sierra Gillespie in right now, who is outside the courthouse. What is the vibe there?
I mean, I'm telling you, Chris, came out of nowhere. No one was expecting that after 1 hour worth of deliberations, we would have a verdict. So much so,
These people wanted to get up out of there. I believe. I'm not that shocked that they came that fast. They don't want to be stuck in that courthouse.
People were able to show up. I'm shocked by it. There's a major crowd outside of the house. I mean, I have no idea where all of these people came from just to surround and hear all of this. And I mean, I think the vibe is that this is a pretty big win for P. Diddy. I mean, not guilty on count 1 of racketeering. Huge win. I mean, that could potentially throw life sentence out the window. And you can definitely tell in the crowd here. People who are pro Diddy are definitely happy about it.
And I know we talked about when we signed at the end of last hour, when Diddy's kids left, you saw his sons, his twin daughters, they got in that Sprinter van and they headed out after praying with their dad. And then he goes to jury deliberations. I know his mom and his sister were in the courtroom, but did you then get back? Were they there for this verdict?
I believe so that they were. And I'm telling you.
Hello, Jake, Junior West, how you?
When we heard the verdict. Elizabeth Milner got up, ran inside. I jumped in, plugged the microphone in my IFB, ready to go. So it was almost like a frenzy here. You can kind of feel the vibes, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you all, by the way, that here everyone can kind of feel the vibes that something is going on. I did see the commotion behind me. I did see the Sprinter van, but honestly, I was plugging in during all of this, so I didn't physically see them with my eyes, but I do believe that they were there in the courtroom.
And if you're just joining us here on Law and Crime on the live stream, it's great with you. We have a verdict in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, and I want to read through this verdict for you once again, just so we're all on the same page. The judge said, or the deputy, in the matter of the U.S. versus Combs, count 1, juror number 5. The foreman says not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty. Sex trafficking of the victim that went by the pseudonym Jane, not guilty. And then transportation for prostitution of Jane, guilty. Have another court update coming in. The judge asking the media not to question jurors about their deliberations. Jurors, you can contact our chambers. You gave up a lot 10 weeks. It is inspiring. You worked together, rain or shine. You answered the call, public service. That should give us hope. The judge then says, I need to address a few matters with the lawyers. Then I will come back to meet with you, jurors. All rise to the jury. Then the jurors then exit the courtroom, and the judge says, I'll hear any application then about sentencing date. Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, says he should be released. Combs Agnifilo says he is no longer charged with sex trafficking or racketeering. His plane has been chartered. It is in Maui. He does not have access to his plane. This is his first conviction, and it is a prostitution offense. He should be released. William Corman, criminal defense attorney, as someone in this line of work, how strong of an argument that is that Sean Combs should be released?
The problem is this. Combs has a significant amount of assets, and if Sean Combs chose not to come back to court to be sentenced, he would be able to do that. So, again, correct, he has no criminal record. Correct, he's been found guilty only of the lowest hanging fruit, as we've been calling it. I think it's an argument that can be made. Obviously, the prosecution is going to argue against it vociferously. I'd be surprised if the judge went along with it, but candidly, I think we've all been a little surprised by what's happened in the past 2 hours. But again, I don't anticipate the judge will allow it.
Mark Agnifilo continuing on here saying family is here and could sign a bond. He should be released today to go back and live at 2-Star Island, which is in Miami. Judge says, this is coming up right now. I will hear from the government in a moment. Are you proposing he just walk outside now? And the defense says yes. Candace, there's going to be a lot of conversation about Sean Combs and his legacy. You can't unsee the 2016 from the Intercontinental Hotel, that is for sure. But how does
his attorney's trying to push for his release until the hearing. If they let that man out, he ain't coming back. So that's that.
Really will. Some people are going to say, well, we were in there for 7 weeks and we heard all of this debauchery and all of things that when we look at the cumulative effect of the evidence, I think he was guilty. So you're going to have people on both sides. But I think in terms of his legacy, personally, the legacy for him is going to still be his music. That's going to live and live. But I think there's a legacy that's going to happen in terms of this case in particular. And when RICO is used, there's going to be a lot of conversation and information exchange online and on shows.
I just can't see them. Well, I'm shocked on everything else. The only thing I thought they were going to find him innocent on was the organized crime. But what he's charged with a crime, he shouldn't be allowed to leave.
Unfairly used by people who are in the music industry.
But this is his first offense, so he might get out.
It seems like someone who we could make a big headline out of. We're the prosecutors. This is what the defense was saying in their closing argument, that this is just over prosecution of someone who, let's leave his legacy alone. There's nobody here who's coming after Sean Combs, but the government don't trust him. I think that that's going to be the lasting legacy of this case in particular.
And you think of the 2016 video once again, and it's the video of Sean Combs. He's in a towel. He's chasing after Cassie Ventura, and grabs her and beats her. It was video that Sean Combs then, according to testimony from a security guard, he paid off $100,000 to get rid of what he thought was the only copy. And yet, in the end, they find not guilty of sexting of Cassandra Ventura. William, what about her testimony just didn't get the job done? Or should I say, what is it about the defense's argument that did get the job done and got a not guilty verdict?
I'm going to assume that it was the defense counsel's argument that was saying this is a complicated relationship. Sean Combs has been charged with this grand scheme, this RICO enterprise, if you will. And there's a big difference between being involved in the RICO scheme and being, unfortunately, a serial abuser. And if we were on trial for him being a serial abuser, there's no argument to be made. We've all watched the video. We're going to watch it 100 times during the course of this trial. You can't make the connection between him being a serial abuser to him and this giant criminal enterprise, including the sex trafficking. Because again, there was a huge amount of digital footprints where she was involved in it, and she was willing to go along with it, and she was amenable to it, and she indicated that she was into it, and things those lines. And those.
I can't believe they didn't get him for sex trafficking. I don't understand
Sex
that.
trafficking of the victim who went by the pseudonym Jane, who also.
No, I was not a victim. I always said I did not feel like Jane was a victim. But Cassie, I'm so shocked.
There's been a lot of talk, Candace. I want to say hello to the 55,000 people joining us right now for this coverage of the verdicts in the trial of Sean Diddy. There's been a lot of talk about just how good Sean Combs' defense team was, that this was the all-star dream teams for defense team. What did they do that is different than the typical defense attorney that you see in a courtroom?
They took a lot of chances.
Present witnesses like they did, and that they were able to jab holes into the witnesses on cross-examination. So really, they had witnesses speaking on their behalf. If you look on it that way, that you are my witnesses, and now I'm going to show inconsistencies. Now I'm going to show bias. Now I'm going to show that you are a money grabber in this particular one. Now I'm going to show that the thing is after Sean Combs. So I think that there were a lot of opportunities, and they did do a very good job. On the other hand, so did the prosecution. So I think that really kind of the takeaway, and that is when we look at these attorneys that were great across the board. That was one of the things that was really spectacular about
Yeah, White family, very interesting. I already figured he wasn't going to be found guilty on charge number 1, but the rest of it, are they serious? The only thing they got him on was transportation of prostitution across the line. That is ridiculous.
Interactive, comedic, really kind of brought light to
even distribution of DRUG. He definitely did that. So I don't get that.
Deal. Oh wow, aren't they great? So he really kind of made light of what this could translate.
Yeah, they can appeal it. Will they win it, or will they want to? I don't know. He still faces.
Connect with theory in that way.
He still faces 10 years per count. So he was charged with 2 counts of transportation of prostitution across state line.
$1 million bond. Mark Agnifilo says, Diddy's defense attorney, yes, in travel to Florida, New York, and Los Angeles. Then Assistant U.S. Attorney Comey says, the U.S. opposes his release. A person found guilty shall be detained until the judicial officer finds he is not likely to flee or be a danger. Comey continues on saying, the defendant faces a maximum sentence of 20 years.
Right.
Even while faced with this case, he assaulted here in New York, preparing to surrender. He had drugs in his hotel room, was ready to commit.
Here's the thing. Hopefully the judge does not let that idiot out. They'll be a fool. They let him out. That man is not coming back. He ain't coming back. He gonna get on that plane and not his plane, but he gonna get on a plane and be gone.
Plan to be here the whole day. So this we do have more biz to attend to, even though this verdict has been read. Let's go back to Sierra Gillespie outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Sierra, what more are you seeing outside the courthouse? And just as you're processing how all of this played out, as someone who covers celebrity,
that'll be the dumbest move they made if they let this man out.
How will people in time?
He's facing 20 years in prison.
How does this impact his legacy?
He ain't innocent.
He came back as before racketeering conspiracy.
Wow, Chris, there's a lot to digest. Again, I am still shocked the fact that we have a verdict after 1 hour of deliberation this morning. And like I said, we're here live on our live stream, ready to go review the latest, as Chris has been doing so eloquently, getting you guys all up to speed. So what's happening? I'm standing here facing the camera with the courthouse behind me, and I swear to you, every time I turn to look and see, okay, what's going on? Am I going on air? Am I not? Every time I turn back around, there is more people. I'm going to guess 200 people, could be more, that are surrounding the front of the courthouse there as these arguments.
Well, I can tell you this: if they don't let him out, they might have riots outside. Because people, his fan base want him released. But if they wise, they better not step in.
But at first, this is a hung jury when we're talking about racketeering conspiracy. You know, either side, we aren't able to decide decide. Maybe if it ends in a hung jury, there could be a retrial down the line. We don't know. It's still up in the air. But the fact that it's not guilty, they're major win. The fact that it's not guilty on 2 more charges, the fact that he is only found guilty on the transportation to engage in prostitution, I think that's a major win for him. And
Heck yeah, that's a major win.
Celebrity lives are different.
That's a major win.
I'll call myself an ordinary person. My life is a little bit different than P. Diddy's. But I mean, as far as all of that goes, honestly, they talked about this during the ongoing trial. They talked about how there was another famous rapper who took part in these freak-offs, with the transportation to engage in prostitution.
Now, the thing is, will they go after anybody else? Probably not. With a not guilty verdict on Rico and stuff like that, other than Trent, they ain't going after nobody else. This case is done. It's just him.
Down in the, I think, as perhaps it maybe once was.
Now, the other celebrities, they got their cases on trial. They might be doing some time for that, but not the people associated with Diddy.
It's your business whether or not you want to still consume the content that he produces. Do have more updates coming in. The Assistant U.S. Attorney Comey continuing to say, I'm aware of cases. This is as far as whether Sean Combs, what bail should be set because he's been found guilty on 2 counts related to the Mann Act, transportation to engage in prostitution. She says, I'm aware of cases involving minors, but we intend to raise relevant conduct at sentencing, the drugs and violence. Judge says, I like the letters from each side. When? A few hours. So we're expecting to hear something related to bail moving in, at least at some point today, potentially. The judge then says, I think that makes sense. Mr. Combs does not want to go back to the MDC, and this is shaking his head. So 1 p.m. letters, and we'll convene in the afternoon. I'll let the parties know when. Mark Agnifilo says he would be a fool, which he is not, to make any condition. So the judge says for now they are adjourned. So there you go, adjourned until 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I believe the prosecution and defense will be making some sort of argument about what happens now to Sean Diddy Combs ahead of any potential sentence related to the 2 charges that he was found guilty of, transportation to engage in prostitution.
I do not believe this. I'm shocked. They got me shocked.
More than 24,000 of you voting on this. Predictions on
all right, y'all. Like one did say, they felt like everybody was going to be shocked at the end of the day, and they wasn't lying. We all are shocked. The only, so basically what this means, is the only thing that they found him guilty for was transporting escorts to and from, and Cassie as well, and Jane, prostitution across state lines. So they got them on transportation and prostitution, which is still a federal crime. And it minimum he can get years, not maximum, but minimum he can get 10 years. This was the part I was telling y'all that even though he may not get RICO, because after yesterday's hung decision on number 1, I already figured he wasn't gonna get it because they had to unanimously agree on absolutely everything. And if they was that confused on the organized crime, they wasn't finna do it. So now what I wasn't expecting was they were going to be unanimously not guilty and unanimously guilty on various things within the actual the other 4 that was out there. That's something I wasn't thinking, because I was thinking if they unanimously agree it's either guilty or unanimously not guilty, especially when you're talking about number 1, because if they said not guilty, then they wouldn't even have to consider number 1, which still I'm a little bit confused on that, because if they all said not guilty on a couple of let's go ahead and put that in. If they said not guilty on 5 and 4, then what was the deliberation about number 1? Because you needed 2. You needed 2 separate crimes, not 2 of the same crime. I mean, he was charged with 2 crimes, but he was charged with you need 2 of separate crimes, not 2 of the same crime. So still, there would still not be technically a RICO, because it had to be 2 separate crimes that occurred over a 10-year period, not 2 crimes that's the same that occurred over 10 period. So I'm not really sure what the hang up was yesterday, because they could have told this yesterday. And they just was unclear about play about it or whatever. I'm not really sure. I'm sure that's gonna come out a little bit later. Because that's the only thing that really makes sense. But the thing about letting him out on bond, okay, so it's also one other thing to take into consideration. This man served over a little over a year in jail. So whatever sentence he's gonna get, that first year is gonna be knocked off, right? Because he already served his time. So bare minimum, he got 19 more years to do. Maximum, I'm not really sure what the maximum is. I just know the minimum is 10. I'm assuming maybe the maximum might be 15. So he's still looking at a possible of 30 years of cumulative for both crimes. His attorneys, when they come back at 1 o'clock, they're gonna argue whether or not they should let him out on bond. Now, here's the thing: even though this is first offense and everything, most criminals that get convicted of a crime don't go out free. They don't let you out once you get convicted. I ain't never heard of this. This is crazy. They're trying to say they gonna ground his plane. He won't have access to it. That's his plane. That don't mean he ain't got to say all the other planes in the United States. That makes no sense. Like that makes no sense. If they let this man out until sentencing, which could happen anywhere from 30 to 60 days, this man is gone. Come on, y'all. Let's just use common sense. His attorney told me something. He won't do that. He's not going to do anything to get him in any more trouble. What more trouble can he be in? He about to lose possibly 20 to 30 years of his life. He's gone anyway. I mean, so do not let this man out. Thank you, Nancy. I am 50 years old and I'm looking awful because after I seen this, I jumped out. I was still laying in the bed. I jumped out of the bed. I was like, oh my God, they getting ready to do a verdict. I ain't ready. Yeah, I'm confused. I'm confused. I don't even know why. I don't even know why any of this is even a thought. Thank you so much about my earrings. I don't even know why any of this is a thought about having him on bond because this is the crazy mess in the world. Who gets convicted of a crime, a federal crime, and they get out on bond? Who does that? He's not innocent. Okay. They're talking about something they'll set I think they say $1 million bond on him. What's $1 million to this man? He don't care about $1 million. I mean, okay, you can have $1 million, but you're gonna have to fire me next. I'm not going to jail, not willingly. Okay. Whatever. He is going to flee. He's deporting everybody else. He's gonna deport himself. He ain't gonna be here. He's gonna go to a country, and y'all ain't gonna be able to get him if y'all let this man out of jail. He ain't gonna care. He gonna be like, I see y'all. I see y'all gonna visit me in other country. I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna get locked up again. But they did allow him to in the courtroom because typically after court is adjourned, they're supposed to lock you back up and send you back down until they find out what they're gonna do far as your bond. But they agreed to allow him to sit inside the courtroom because P. Diddy was like, you don't want to go back, you don't want to go back. So he's holding the fact, trying to see if they can let him out. The judge told each side to write a letter as to why they feel he should. The defense, why they feel he should be released. The prosecution, why he shouldn't. It's up to the judge whether or not they are going to release him on bond. And he'll come back today at 1 o'clock to for they can all plead their case with him. But it's out of anybody's hands at this point. Everything else is left up to the judge. Even when it comes down to his sentencing, the sentencing is up to the judge. The judge can't give him less than 10 years. But the thing is, the judge can give him more time. The judge can give him the minimum, or he can give him the maximum, or somewhere in between. That's why I've always said as long as they find him guilty on something, he can still get a life sentence, a technical life sentence, depending on the judge. So
William, will start with you. Does this mean that the prosecution didn't pick its witnesses well?
Now I agree. They're talking about KK, and do they feel that they messed up by not bringing her on there? If they had an opportunity to bring her on that stand, they definitely messed up on that note. because they should have. And according to what that judge said both sides had an opportunity to bring anybody they wanted on this stand, and they both of them's not to. So I think that's where the prosecution messed up. They should have called KK. If they would have called KK to the stand, they probably would have had a slam dunk win. If y'all don't know, another lawsuit come out yesterday when they got a hung jury. So there's another lawsuit pending on him as well that he gonna have to go through as well. So he is out of the woods because he got lawsuits he got civil lawsuits out the behind. Another lawsuit has been filed yesterday. So he ain't out of the woods by a long shot. Them 30 years go up from there, or he might have to pay more funding out to his victims. But far as the ones that we know on this stand, he has settled with everybody other than Jane. Now they didn't say they said Jane wasn't going to seek monetary value, but she can change that if she wants. But in her, I just if with her, I just don't feel like she will because he's still paying her rent. I mean, unless he ain't got to pay her rent no more, and he out. So unless she wants to ensure her $10,000 rent get paid, she better up. But then that could backfire against her because now that he's facing any more charges as far as this is concerned, you really don't have to pay her $10,000 a month. So that might be going out of the picture for her. I don't see why he would continue to pay her stuff. There's a reason for him to continue to pay. It's over at this point. His still, he's going to jail. Paying her rent didn't say you not going to jail.
How often does it just come down to these are 12 people that just saw this? If there was 12 other people, they could have seen it another way.
I think that
that's exactly what it boils down to. It boils down to how the 12 jurors interpreted everything. It was up to the prosecution and the defense to present that story to them and present the law to them to where they can fully understand. And the defense purposely didn't try to make them understand RICO because they didn't want the client to get charged. The prosecution, they kind of fell off on that one. They didn't if in my personal opinion, if they really truly brought KK on that stand, they failed on their end on that note. That's where they messed up. Because if KK could have took that would have stand and they could have forced her to take the stand. They don't just because so I'm not that's why that part of me will always struggle as to why they didn't do it. Because even if she didn't want to, they could make her. Immunity is just so that you won't go to jail based off what you tell us, but they can make her think. That ain't even an issue. So I'm still kind of confused, especially after this verdict, why they didn't call her. Now the defense, the prosecution did say during sentencing they got more information to be released on Diddy, far as drugs and involvement with children and stuff like that. But that's crazy because if you had that, why you just didn't present that during the trial? I'm not really sure what's going on here. To me, it almost seems like they both was working together to get him some kind of time, but really wasn't trying to get him all the time that he really should have been gotten. Because some of this ain't even making any sense. Like, if you knew all this information, the tell was doing the trial, we don't want to hear about it now because they can't charge her for anything as far as what you're doing now because it would be called double jeopardy. So what's the point? I'm not really sure what the whole point of that is.
Count by count, just writing out, what was it going to be? And so obviously count 1 being not guilty, count 2 being not guilty, count 4 being not guilty. The only guilty for count 3 and count 5, that being transportation to engage in prostitution, i.e. the Mann Act. And so I will say this, Chris, that whenever
Oh, hold on. Okay. I was confused.
that
They did get him
whenever
on two separate crimes. They got him for the Mann Act and they got him for transportation. So it was M5 that they found him guilty on. I thought they just found him guilty on 2 cases of transportation. Well, heck, not now. If now no understanding that completely, he shouldn't be getting out of jail. Period. Because 2 counts of transportation and 1 count for the Mann Act. That's actually 3 separate sentences, time frames that he can get. So it could be way more than 30 years that he get jail. So I'm trying to understand.
I saw him.
Now I get why they was deliberating on number 1, because they had it for 2 crimes. They had it for transportation. They had it for the Mann Act.
I remember I was speaking to Charlucci, one of Diddy's child friends, somebody who's been in,
But they couldn't connect it for Rico. That's probably, like I said yesterday, because they're looking at, he's the only one on the stand. The prosecution messed up by not getting KK, D-Rock, and all them on that stand with him. They messed up.
Hugging, they were shaking, they were crying. Timmy and Ana Maria Escobar, they literally hugged and cried while after the jury was dismissed, after they were taken back to the attorney room. There was an audible applause for Mark Agnifilo, Mark Bouchard. People were just standing up and clapping for him. Again, everyone, this wasn't just the Combs family that was doing this. This was also members of the public who were inside that courtroom. I saw that whenever the jury was still present, so I'm having a little step back here, Chris, is that whenever the verdict was read and he saw that it was only guilty for count 3 and 5, that he looked at the jury, and I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, because everything just kind of felt like a blur, but I think I'm remembering this correctly. I saw him mouth thank you to the jurors, or at least bare minimum do this to them. I saw that Justin's girlfriend was crying. Shapiro was nodding over at Sean Combs. Sean Combs again told his family that he was coming home, and I did make it a note right here, Chris. I just got to it.
Now here's the thing: being that that life sentence is off the table, there is room to get his sentences, even after the judge give him issue a sentence. It is a way that he could try to petition for a lower time. It doesn't. That's why I was saying he don't necessarily have to do the full sentencing that is given down to him. I'm doing good, Rachel. How you doing? I done jumped up early trying to talk about this whole trial, girl. They found him not guilty on 3 of the charges and guilty on 2 of the charges. They did not find him guilty of racketeering, so he's going to prison, but he's only going to prison for 2 counts. Well, really 3. He's going to prison for 2 counts of transportation of engaged prostitution and 1 for the Mann Act.
Especially on
Which
count 1 racketeering conspiracy, Sean Combs not guilty.
Look, this is a win for Sean Combs. This is a big victory.
right, this is a win for him. I don't give a darn what they say.
There was almost no chance he was going to be acquitted of the transportation for the purposes of prostitution counts. Now, when you looked at all the evidence, all the records, all the documents with regard to those counts, it was hard to imagine how he would have been acquitted.
Right, he got off on the most serious charges. However, Rachel, the charges that he has been charged with still comes with a lot of time. Transportation of prostitution for each case comes up for 10 years. So he got 10 years for Cassie, 10 years for Jane, and the Mann Act, I believe, has 10 years, I think, which is 30 years. Total. He can get up to 30 years. 30 years for a 55-year-old man. That means he'll be 85 when he get out. Like, they done gave him a life sentence anyway.
The judge will say, go back.
Right. But they're coming back at 1 o'clock for the